And we're joined by Bob Holt, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, who covers Arkansas with us. Bob, thank you very much. I know we want to get into football, but I also want to make sure we don't leave you without talking about Calipari and what he's done with the basketball, because we tried to do that. You were loaded up during that time. So with Texas and Oklahoma entering the SEC, it seems like Arkansas's kind of been stuck. Are they even more stuck now than they were before?
You talking about in football?
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, I think if you're looking at programs like Arkansas, South Carolina, and, Kentucky, teams that have had, pockets of success. I mean, when Petrino was here as the head coach, Arkansas went, I guess it was 21-5 in 2010 and 2011, won the Cotton Bowl, lost the close Sugar Bowl to Ohio State, and had some really good teams with Darren McFadden, and when Houston Nutt was the coach, and Darren was the Heisman runner-up back-to-back years, but sustaining success is really hard for teams like Arkansas and South Carolina. Year in and year out when they're trying to keep up with the Alabamas and the Georgias, and then now you have Ole Miss and Missouri looking like they're kind of crashing the party. So yeah, I think coaches, no coach is going to say that they're bothered by the fact that Texas you came into the league and they wish they had, because it's going to mean more money for everybody, whether you're Georgia or you're Vanderbilt or whoever. But yeah, it definitely makes Arkansas has a hard job in the SEC. It's not an easy place to win, and having Texas and OU in the league, I think it makes it harder for everybody. But I think it especially makes it harder for the programs that they're trying to move up, like Arkansas, Kentucky, South Carolina, teams like that.
Bob, what would you put the temperature on Sam Pittman's seat?
It's pretty hot. I mean, Sam acknowledged that. He got asked about it in Dallas. I almost said Hoover. In Dallas SEC Media Day. I give Sam credit. He didn't dodge the question. He didn't get all defensive. He said, yeah, he's really hot. I mean, Sam's been doing this a long time. He's in his fifth season as a head coach, but he's coached for a long time. He's coached in the SEC at various programs, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas. And Nick Saban tried to hire him in Alabama when he first got to Arkansas and helped him double his salary at Arkansas. But, I mean, after going 4-8, I will say this. I mean, Pete, I think Sam overall has done a good job. He inherited a program. This is kind of hard to believe because Arkansas does have a very good history. If you go back to, Frank Boros in the 60s, and then Lou Holt and Ken Hatfield, by Petrino, some other good coaches, Danny Ford, won an SEC West title area. He's a Hall of Fame coach, won a national title at Clemson. But the 3 years before Sam Pittman came, Arkansas was 1-23 in the SEC. 1-7 in Brett Bielema's last year, and that got Brett fired. He's at Illinois now. He's a very good coach. Did a great job at Wisconsin, but it just, again, is evidence what a tough job Arkansas is in the SEC, especially the SEC West, which I know there aren't divisions anymore, but still very tough schedule for Arkansas. And then Chad Morris, who recruited pretty well, and, it just didn't work, and they went 0-16. Chad was actually 0-14 because he got fired with 2 games left. But so let me just say, guys were not knocking down the door to take the Arkansas job, right? They were 1-23. I think a lot of coaches saw it as a career killer. If they were doing well, like at a mid-major, maybe they were a hot coordinator, they're thinking, well, I'm going to get some other opportunities. I'm not going to go to Arkansas and kill my career. Sam has been a big Arkansas guy going back to growing up in Grove, Oklahoma. He came over here when he was in high school, went to camps with Lou Holt and stuff. So Sam, Arkansas was his dream job. And then it has been a good job historically, just not – it's tough in the SEC. It was not easy to win the Southwest Conference, but they had a lot more success in the Southwest Conference. It's a little different playing Alabama and Georgia than playing Rice and TCU and Baylor back in those days. And so Sam took over a really bad situation. And in the first year of the All-SEC schedule, dealing with COVID, they went 3-7 and really should have gone 4-6 because a bad call by the officials literally took the Auburn game away from them. So they played an All-SEC schedule and went 4-6. Well, 3-7 on paper. We're going to go to a bowl. So I thought that was a really good job considering they had been 4-20 and 0-16 in the SEC the previous 2 years. And then a big year, in 21, 9-4, 22 was somewhat disappointing. They still went to the Liberty Bowl, beat a good, solid Kansas team, went 7-6. And last year, 4-8, lost a bunch of close games. It really put, the offense was terrible to the point where Dan Enos got fired as coordinator during the year. And so, yeah, it really put Sam on the hot seat. And so there's a lot of pressure to win this year. And they don't play Alabama, but they got a very tough schedule. Their big non-conference game, they got to go on the road to Oklahoma State in week 2. That's a tough game. Texas essentially replaced Alabama on the schedule. So I don't know how good a trade that is. And they've got a very tough schedule again. So, but yeah, the heat's on Sam Pittman, and everybody knows it.
You mentioned Texas, which is another. It's not like Arkansas and Texas haven't played, and Arkansas has had success against them, of course, when they've played some non-conference games. What was the reaction, Bob, when that story in 2021 during about this time came down that Texas and OU were joining the SEC? What was the, overall barometer or temperature in Fayetteville?
Well, yeah, that story broke at Media Days, of all places, in 2021, I think right before Jimbo Fisher took the stage, when he was A&M coach. And, of course, Arkansas at that time knew they were playing Texas here in Fayetteville in 2021. That was already a huge game. And then, that was a great year for Arkansas. They went 9-4, beat Penn State in the Outback Bowl, and had some other big wins, won an overtime game at LSU, Death Valley, and they beat Texas 40-21, and it honestly was not that close. They were beating Texas in the fourth quarter. I think it was 33-6. They just whipped Texas physically at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And, my overreaching thought after that game was, boy, Texas has got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And their offensive and defensive lines in shape, because right now they would go to the SEC. If they played an SEC schedule in 2021, Arkansas was a good team in 2021. They weren't Alabama or Georgia. Texas, if they played an SEC schedule in 2021, I think would have been. They went 5-7 as it was. I think they might have been 3-9. I think they would have been thoroughly embarrassed. Well, credit to Steve Sarkisian, who resurrected his career at Alabama as Nick Saban's offensive coordinator. He got to work, and Texas, which has, arguably the best resources of anybody in the country, the most money, the biggest boosters, the biggest this, the biggest that. I mean, it's Texas, right?
Right.
And got them back on track. They went to the playoffs last year. They beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I will say this, as impressive as that win was at Alabama, and I'm not trying to sound like an SEC homer, but playing an SEC schedule week after week, to me, that's the difference between the Big 12, which is, was a really good league with Texas and OU, and it still is a pretty good league with Utah and Arizona and some other teams coming in. Obviously, the ACC's got good teams with Clemson and Florida State. The Big Ten's, pretty similar to the SEC in terms of, balance and top to bottom, really good teams. But the SEC, to me, what separates it is just the week after week after week grind. I mean, you go to South Carolina or Arkansas and you think, well, geez, that's a break. Well, there's going to be 75,000, 80,000 people at those games. That doesn't happen in Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas. I'm sorry, not saying those aren't good programs, but the SEC is just different when it comes to atmosphere and money and, crowds and fan bases and everything. And so, to me, what will be interesting with Texas and OU is how do they handle the week-to-week grind of the SEC. I think Texas is better equipped to do it right now. Oklahoma's a really good program. They won 10 games last year, but another thing is in the SEC with 16 teams and 8 SEC games, all schedules are not created equal. Missouri's schedule, take a look at Missouri's schedule. It's not easy, but compare it to, say, Arkansas or OU's schedule. It's not the same. Texas' schedule is hard, but it's not the same, honestly, as what OU has to play, in my opinion. I think OU, it's going to be tough for them to win, 7 or 8 games, I know some people I know from my Big 8 days back when I went to school in Missouri, and they were like, how could OU get picked 8th? And I said, well, just look at the league and then look at their schedule, and that's how it happens. And maybe OU will surprise me and go 10-2 or 11-1, but I think they're a very good program. But it's just a different deal in the SEC when you have to play those teams week after week after week. And to me, that we'll see how that goes for Texas and OU. I'll be curious to see how they handle that in their first year in the league.
How'd you feel about Landon Jackson landing on Bruce Feldman's freak list?
Well, yeah, he's he is a freakishly gifted athlete. I mean, 6'7", 270, but super quick. He's got NFL defensive end written all over him. I don't know how high he would have been drafted if he decided to enter the draft. I think if he comes back and has a big year at Arkansas, which I anticipate, not just me, everybody does, or else he wouldn't have been picked first team all conference. But I think he'll be a high NFL draft pick. Hopefully, he has a good year and stays healthy and all that. But yeah, he's got that rare combination of size and speed, and he's experienced. Right, he's a senior. He's got a motor that really doesn't stop, and so with him, it's really just about being consistent. Because if you look at what he did against Alabama last year, he looked unstoppable, and he obviously had a good season, but he wasn't as good every week as he was that game, and so that's the big challenge for him is to consistently play at a super duper high level, which he's good enough to do. Well,
and I know of him because he played at Pleasant Grove High School up in Texarkana. They've had a great run the last 8 to 10 years with Coach Gibson, and I think his brother committed to play at Texas.
Yeah, he's younger. Yeah. I think he's like sophomore.
I mean, there's some dudes, man. There's some really good players from Texarkana. When Craig, Paul asked earlier about the warm seat with Pittman. What, in your opinion, cools it off other than the obvious of getting to a bowl game? Is there anything else in particular that he really needs to show or the team needs to show this year?
Well, I mean, I thought they made a smart move, and it was a surprise, I think, to most everybody going out and getting Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator. I mean, I don't think anybody questions Bobby Petrino's credentials as an offensive play caller and a game planner and a guy that can create great mismatches and coach up quarterbacks and all that stuff. But, he got fired here in some, pretty messy off the field circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Louisville and coached the Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson, but then, had trouble sustaining and winning there. And then he went to Missouri State and did a really good job at a smaller program. And I kind of, I don't think anybody pictured Arkansas hiring him back, but I think circumstances made it a good fit. Arkansas needed a big-time coordinator. Bobby's a big-time coordinator. He was, I think, he obviously did not like how things ended at Arkansas. He's apologized for that. I think he enjoyed his time here for the most part. Obviously didn't enjoy getting fired. And so I think it was important to him. Getting back in the SEC, number one, he did at A&M, but Jimbo Fisher really did not let him run his offense. That was sort of a shotgun wedding, so to speak. I think the A&M administration boosters basically said, look, Jimbo, you got to hire an offensive coordinator. Bobby's a very accomplished guy, but Jimbo didn't let him. I think he handcuffed him, so to speak. Sam's not doing that. Sam's a CEO-type coach. The offensive line's his specialty. Never been a play caller. He's a great recruiter. He's great with people. And so he lets Bobby Petrino run the offense. He lets Travis Williams run the defense. He did the same thing with Barry Odom on defense, and the other offensive coordinators had let Kendall Briles run the offense. Let Dan Enos run the offense. And, of course, Dan got fired because things were going so bad. But I think Bobby is totally in charge of the offense, and I think he enjoys that, and they're going to be a lot better. So I think, one, people are looking for a lot of improvement on offense because they were just really pathetic last year. And, the 7-3 loss to Mississippi State where their field goal was set up by a turnover, that got Dan fired. And so I think they're looking for a lot of improvement on offense. If that comes, they feel like the wins will follow because the defense was even though they kind of let go of the rope last year and lost badly to Auburn and Missouri late in the season, that also had something to do with the offense being so bad and turning the ball over and having some defensive touchdowns by the opponent because the offense was so bad or had bad turnovers and bad field position. And so I think they're looking for a lot better offense, and with that will come more wins. And with that, will, like you say, potentially would be a bowl game. And then, the seat's not so hot. Although I think most SEC places, coaches, I don't care where you are, you're probably one bad season away from being on a hot seat. Even Kirby Smart. I mean, what if Georgia goes 6? I'm not going to. I feel stupid even saying this. What if Georgia goes 7-5? You think their fans are going to be pissed off? So the SEC, because of how much these guys make and all the facilities they have and the filled stadiums, I mean, you're probably one bad season, one mediocre season away from being on the hot seat.
Now, we got to ask you about basketball before we let you go. In the last couple of months, how much have you seen things change now that John Calipari is there and they're making Tyson Razorback nuggets and every other thing that's going on there?
Well, I mean, the Tysons have always been involved in Arkansas. They built the world-class indoor track, the Randall Tyson Indoor Center. They have the I think it's called the Poultry Science Building on campus. The Tyson, but yeah, certainly the involvement in basketball because of the friendship of John. I mean, John. I think it's safe to say John Calipari would not be the Arkansas coach if not for John Tyson. He's not the only reason, but he's a big reason because he put Cal and Hunter Yurchek, the Arkansas AD, together, and it just kind of worked out where Cal probably needed a change. Arkansas obviously needed a coach. But, yeah, when he got hired, he literally had no team. I mean, he had a walk-on. No offense to walk-on. But now he's got a team with some former Kentucky players, an all-SEC player at Tennessee, Final Four guard from Florida Atlantic, some top recruits that follow him from Kentucky. I think they're probably going to be ranked in most preseason polls. So, what Arkansas fans are hoping is that Cal can duplicate what he did, say, his first 10 years in Kentucky, not so much the last 5, where they struggled, obviously, in postseason play. But he's got a great track record. He's 65, but I think he's a young 65. If you see him, I think he's rejuvenated. He's excited. I think he wants to prove people that he's still got it, so to speak. He still can do what he did at Memphis and going to a Final Four and almost win a national title. He can do what he did at UMass. And of course, UMass was nowhere near what Arkansas is. And he built the program there basically from the bottom up, went to a Final Four. And then obviously he had great sustained success at Kentucky. One national title he kind of joked about. He should have, he knows he should have won 9 or whatever it was. But I think what Arkansas fans are hoping for and expecting is that he's going to win big and have postseason runs just like he did, say, his first 10 years at Kentucky.
Bob, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. Appreciate it. Bob Holt, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette on Arkansas football with Sam Pittman, one of those. You see his name on the hot seat.